What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we're going to be previewing round 21. It's Port Adelaide versus Sydney at the Adelaide Oval this Saturday night. It's going to be an absolute epic clash. A team that's sitting on top in not so great form versus a team that's just come off of a good win against Carlton, and that's Port Adelaide. And coming up against the Swans this week, it's going to be a crucial game for both sides, who are looking to find some form going into the final series, and Port Adelaide as well are looking to cement a spot in that top 8. The fight is on. It's definitely going to be a wild ride heading to the last month of the year, and it starts with Sydney this week. So let's get straight into it and preview round 21. Saturday night fever. It's going to be 7 o'clock start. It's going to be an absolute ripper. I'm so looking forward to this one. I think this one's the game for me that's going to see whether or not Port Adelaide are capable of being that deadly side in September, let alone making it. I want us to cement a spot first before I start commenting on what we can do in finals. And Port Adelaide's history is definitely one that's always had a question mark on what it can do in finals, and I think this year is one that's one that can't be pushed aside. I think we have an ability that we can change the scenery of finals this year. I definitely do think we can make it. What proved that to me was the second half against Carlton last week, and if we can bring that for 4 quarters this week against the Swans, I think they will have their work cut out for them. I definitely know that in certain situations, the Swans and teams like Sydney that have been in that position where they've struggled throughout the last month or a period of time, they have that game where everything just clicks again. And I am a little bit scared that it can be this one. I know, they've had some injuries and had some games where they've only lost by a couple of points, but last week's loss to the Dogs was certainly an alarm bell kind of moment for them. And they've lost 4 out of the last 5. They're still sitting on top of the ladder, a game and a half clear. So what they can do this week is definitely something like that. They can bounce back. I think, certain inclusions for Sydney, likes of Rowbottom, will be a massive in terms around their contest ability and their tackling pressure. I think if they get Dane Rampy back, that's a nice inclusion for their defence. Same with Lewis Melican as well. I think having their defensive structure re-strengthened with those ins. Will Hayward as well could be an in for their forward half, and then, as I mentioned, Rowbottom as well in their midfield. So key pillars across the ground that can certainly re-strengthen their game plan and their team. So it's one to look out for in terms of their selection woes and their issues that they have at the moment. But certainly I think we're all very wary that regardless of anything, when they've lost games, besides the Dogs lost, which was a way out of character, I think they're a strong side. And this is the game for Port for me that, if we can get the Swans in an out of form position, they're going to want to bounce back. They're going to want to come at us, and we're a vulnerable side. We can be torn apart quite easily when things go against us. I think last week against Carlton we proved that we have that heart, we have that mindset of never give up, and that's for me such a big thing with us playing against the Swans, is because we need that. We need that for 4 quarters. Saturday night at home, the Swans don't like playing on bigger grounds as such. I think they've done a fairly good job this year, but when they come to the Adelaide Oval, they seem to struggle. And Adelaide Oval's not the biggest side in the world, but they have a bigger size in the world. But when they play against Port, they seem to struggle quite a bit. We haven't lost to Sydney since 2016, and that dreadful loss, I remember that day. That was terrible. But since then, we've had great wins against them. Most notably the last year's one against with Aliir at the SCG. They struggle coming here. They don't like playing Port Adelaide. For some reason, no matter the time of the year, no matter the form line, it's always a struggle against Port. So I think with that in mind and the winning streak we have against them, it's going to be a real mental edge when it comes to this weekend, especially coming off a great win. Sydney, as I mentioned, will want to bounce back, but at the same time they know we've now got a bit of confidence on hand. So I think talking positive like that can definitely strengthen our chances for Saturday night. But hey, it's a new week. A week's a long time in footy, so you just never know. Selection this week for Port Adelaide, looking at it, I don't know about Lachie Jones getting up. I think him obviously getting subbed last week was a little bit of a concern. I don't know if he really injured himself. Looking at the injury list, he's not on there, so it could go in unchanged. I'd be personally making one change. I don't think Narkle can be the sub. In my honest opinion, again, I think he's sort of done that stint. Doesn't really have that impact when he comes on, and I think give that an opportunity for a kid to have that, whether Will Lorenz comes in, restructure it, and Francis Evans goes to sub for a week and give Narkle a full game, or if Todd Marshall comes back this week after his test, does something else happen with the tools? And I think in that case, I'm looking at going. I don't think Todd comes back in. I like the way we moved. I personally go unchanged if I'm absolutely honest, but we always seem to make a change or two. So I think going into this one, whether it's a young kid that comes in and becomes the sub, or something different happens across the board, I think it's going to be an interesting one. Personally, on that Marshall thing, the way Asava looked and his big body and his movement, I thought really decided that key position for him. I don't think him going back will help in any way. I know the Swans have a tall forward line with McLean, they have Amadi, and they also have McDonald, so maybe Marshall does come in for Lachie Jones and Asava goes back and we have that taller defensive unit. But I think our defence has worked really, really well over the last few weeks, with Bergman playing that loose, but also can be playing a one-on-one. Alir and Zerk Thatcher have been really, really prominent in working as a tag team and been really, really positive in the way they've moved around and played footy. So it's such a tough call this week because I know Marshall's capabilities. He plays really well against the Swans, actually matches up all right. So it could be something that we look at there, but I'm going in unchanged. I'm sorry, Todd, but I'm not bringing you back in. I know a lot of fans will be like, well, no, Todd shouldn't play anyway. He was in terrible form and he's had this issue, so he shouldn't play. And I'm thinking, I agree, but structurally, I think that's the way we want to play and that's the way we want to be. And I unfortunately think he will come back in, but I'd be going in unchanged. And for me this week, the tip, I am actually tipping Port Adelaide. I'm tipping us by 9 points. I think it'll be a close game. I think it's one of those games where we just stand up again, and I have a feeling that last week's confidence will ride pretty highly. We've got an 8-day break. We're going to need that rest, and we'll take that in, and I think we'll get the job done against the Swans, who are going to come at us. But I think we're going to sort of identify that we needed to win a couple of big games, and this is another one, and we don't want to lose at home. We've lost games at home this year that we shouldn't have. Or have embarrassed ourselves in front of a big crowd in good conditions. There's I strongly believe that we can do this, and we shouldn't be losing at home, especially if we want to play a final and even a home final. If we want to lock that in this year, I think this is the type of game we need to win, and win at a good level for 4 quarters. Well, Paul fans, thank you so much for watching this preview for round 21. Let me know your comments below, your thoughts about this week's game and what your tip is as well. It's going to be a good game. I'm very much looking forward to going and cheering the boys on. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content to come your way. Thank you so much for watching once again. My name's Anthony, and as always, come the pair.